Charles and David Koch are two of the richest men in the world. For years, the brothers have been the single most important funders of Republican politics in Washington and the country.
Really, Tucker?
The Koch network of donors spends hundreds of millions of dollars every election cycle.
According to OpenSecrets.org, Charles and Elizabeth Koch contributed $3 million in funding to outside spending groups, putting them at number 53. And David Koch didn't even make the top 100, meaning he gave less than $1.45 million. Put them together and they don't even crack the top 40. As an organization, Koch Industries contributed $11.3 million for the 2016 cycle and spent $20.6 million in lobbying in 2015 and 2016. Not hundreds of millions. For all time, OpenSecrets.org has them giving $52 million total. They are far from the top contributors to Republicans. That, according to that same list, is Las Vegas Sands. Funny how he doesn't give any kind of source for this, but it sounds like it could be Rachel Maddow. By the way, the Koch brothers opposed Trump in 2016, so if they call all the shots, how on earth did Trump get elected?
As it turns out, the Kochs don't have much in common with conservatives. They are, in fact, totally opposed to most conservative policy goals.
And that's a good thing.
The Kochs are libertarian ideologues. They're passionate and inflexible about what they believe.
Ha! Gotta love the idea of leaving other people alone to live their lives as they see fit as inflexible ideologues. So what are you, Carlson? We've been looking at more and more of the bogus claims you've been making to push the policies you'd like to be there, to force other people to live the way you want them to. You want to stop peaceful people from trading with whoever they want to preserve American jobs, even though it won't. You want to use the government to stop automation technology that could make all of our lives better because it fits your agenda. And you've continually used misinformation and pseudoscience to do it. So who's the inflexible ideologue here?
America first? The Kochs find the very notion of that absurd.
Right, because they're not collectivist psychopaths.
An economic policy that seeks to strengthen families? The Kochs denounce that as, quote, crony capitalism or picking winners and losers. They think it's immoral, and they'll tell you so.
Because it is. That does not strengthen American families. That's just rhetoric you blow because you can't respond to the actual economics of the policies. Policies that destroy jobs for the very people you claim to want to help.
Controlling our borders? The Kochs consider that racist.
Whereas wanting to point guns at peaceful people who want to come somewhere to live and work and make a better life for themselves? Nothing wrong with that at all.
A few years ago, in fact, Bernie Sanders noted that the Koch brothers are far to the left of him on immigration. Open borders, quote, that's a Koch brothers proposal, Bernie Sanders said. And he was right.
Tucker, you're actually making us like the Kochs here. At least anyone who's seen my video, How to Argue for Immigration Restrictions.
But in fact, it's more than a proposal. It's in effect what we have now.
You're saying we have open borders now? What is this, some kind of 4D chess game to discredit your own opinion? Or are you just completely stupid? I think you're just completely stupid.
2.5 years later, though, the border is more porous than ever. A tide of humanity is flooding in illegally.
No, moron! Illegal immigration is the lowest it's been in decades.
Republicans in Congress have done almost nothing to help with the situation. Why? Well, you can thank the Kochs for that.
Then why have they done absolutely nothing that the Kochs actually want? The Kochs are for marijuana legalization. They support free trade. They're for a balanced budget. In what way are these spendthrifty, trade-restricting, drug warrior Republicans controlled by the Kochs? Or is it because your policies are failing, you know it, and so you have to find an excuse?
So if you're wondering why the Republican Party often seems completely out of sync with its own voters, this is why.
70% of Americans want undocumented immigrants to be granted legal status. I think you're the one out of touch, bucko.
The Koch network has also successfully pushed Republicans to join the left in going soft on crime.
I can't even fathom what it is he's talking about here. Not with the continued militarization of police, not to mention their total lack of accountability, and more Americans incarcerated on bogus crimes than ever before.
The Kochs aggressively backed the First Step Act, which is currently allowing drug traffickers to leave prison early.
So they want to release nonviolent perpetrators of victimless made-up crimes. I don't see the problem.
They support the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act that would cut required penalties for heroin and cocaine traffickers in half.
Because mandatory penalties and solitary confinement are the tools of fascism. They are completely incompatible with every single concept of justice this country was founded upon. Plus, they don't work. And by the way, they've been trying to get this bill passed for 4 years. If the Kochs have the Republicans in their back pockets, why is it taking so long?
Now keep in mind, they're doing all of this in the middle of the deadliest drug epidemic in American history.
That isn't happening, Tucker. You can't just make up phrases like that to try and support the unsupportable. According to the CDC, drug overdoses are down significantly since 2016 after a sharp uptick during the Obama years. And by the way, none of this would be happening in the first place if it weren't for the insane war on drugs. It's the result of illicit fentanyl being sold on the black market in place of heroin. And people don't realize that they're getting a drug that's hundreds if not thousands of times more potent than the one they were wanting. You cannot fix this stuff by putting words on paper. Laws are not magical incantations, you cultist.
Like almost everyone else, by the way, Republicans want lower drug prices. Drugs are expensive and getting more so. And yet the Kochs are working to kill a bill introduced by Senators Josh Hawley and Rick Scott that will prevent drug companies from charging Americans more than they charge the people of Canada or France.
Wow, you mean they actually want drug prices set at their market equilibrium and not what other countries engaging in price controls are doing?
That seems like a fair idea to most people.
Yeah, except these drugs are almost impossible to get in Canada and France. People get put on huge waiting lists, while at the same time they pay 10 times as much for generics as we do, not counting things like dispensing fees, which we don't even have.
Then the Kochs helped draft the 2017 tax cut. That turned out to be a far better deal for corporate America than it was for the American middle class.
Most working families are paying far less in taxes than they were before. Knock it off, Tucker. Where are you getting your talking points from, Mother Jones?
A majority of Republicans support capping interest rates on credit cards and payday loans. The Kochs think that idea is ridiculous.
Yeah, that whole free market thing again. These are very risky credit items, and the interest rate needs to reflect that. When it doesn't, bad things happen. Remember the 70s?
In fact, some years ago when David Koch ran for vice president as a libertarian, abolishing all usury laws was part of his platform.
Well, that just means he read his Spooner. You clearly haven't.
It's what many rich liberals believe. It's just not what most Republicans believe.
Then they're idiots.
Remarkably, they have now joined the left-wing campaign against free speech in America. It means censorship of your views.
This video just gets more laughable by the minute. The Kochs are ardent supporters of free speech. In fact, the Charles Koch Institute has consistently supported free speech and free press, fighting campus regulation of speech and funding college journalism programs, and also funding legal defenses of news organizations. And their defense of real free speech isn't in any way tainted by their refusal to support the massive government regulation of big tech championed by you and your buddy Elizabeth Warren.
Big tech has become a far greater threat to your freedom than the federal government. The Kochs don't care about that. Nothing Google does violates libertarian orthodoxy. More to the point, the Kochs don't care about Republican voters or what happens to them.
They've done a lot more for them than you ever have. They've given over $1 billion to charities and civic causes, including preserving freedom of speech and fighting poverty, cancer, and addiction. All you've done is lie to these people to push your agenda, an agenda that is straight out of the radical left playbook, all the while claiming that the Kochs are going against what Republicans want. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe and keep these videos coming by donating, becoming a subscriber and getting special benefits, or even for free with airtime. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.